Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. And thank you for everyone who's here live. If you are here live, please drop a comment and let me know that you're here. I'm so happy that so many of you signed up for this event, and I'm so excited to talk about this topic with all of you because I absolutely love talking about this. So, before I dive in, I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me and who might not be familiar with my work. My name is Elise Basine, and I have been teaching and sharing breathwork for the last 24 years. I actually discovered breathwork when I was 19 years old in 2001, and it has been a huge part of my life ever since. The young age of 20, I did 4 breathworker training programs and started taking clients by the age of 21. And it has just been a huge part of my life for a very long time. And I have watched it like go from something that nobody ever heard of. And whenever I would talk about it, people would be like, "What is that? What are you talking about? Aren't we always breathing?" To now it being something that is much more well known and recognized as a really powerful healing modality. However, it's something that I have a ton of experience in, and I see it through a very unique lens, not only because of the very long time that I've been teaching and sharing breath work, but also because of my other background and experience. So, along with being a breath worker for the past 24 years, I also spent 10 years working as a mental health professional. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology, and I worked as a school counselor in schools for 10 years. So, up until 2020, I was working as a school counselor with traumatized children in the inner city. So, not only do I have a very extensive background with breath work, I also have over a decade of hands on experience working with traumatized children. So, my methodology is really a marriage of the best of the spiritual somatic healing practices that I've learned over the years, namely breath work, and also what I've seen working as a mental health professional and what was missing in the clinical and therapeutic spaces. So I've married both of those things together, what I saw missing in both spaces and the best of both spaces, to create my methodology, the metamorphosis method. And breath work is a huge piece of my methodology, along with my trauma healing tools that I've created and my special inner child healing process. So, today we're going to focus mainly on breath work and why it is such an important way to help your clients get predictable and permanent results. And I know that if you're somebody that works with clients regularly, you want that thing that is going to get them a predictable result every time. If you're a coach, if you're a therapist, a healer, if you work with people to create change in any capacity, this is something that you want to know, because I know how it feels when you're working with a client and you keep having to go back to the same thing over and over again. And you give them so many tools, you help them change their mindset, change their routine, understand why they're doing what they're doing. But for some reason, it's still not changing. And even when you think it's changed, then all of a sudden it happens again and you feel like you're back to square one. And sometimes you feel like, I don't know how else to help this person. So that's why what I'm going to share today is really going to change things for you, because it's going to help you to see why that type of thing happens and what you can do to prevent it. So, first, I'm going to talk about some traditional ways that we help clients create transformation from the lens of therapy, healing, and coaching. And what are some of the major things we use now that most people use now to help their clients create a transformation? And then why those things don't always work that well. And not to say they're not effective and you shouldn't use them at all, but I'm just going to point out some major reasons why those things don't work. And then we're going to go into the breath work piece and my thinking behind it and why it is something that you can rely on to create predictable and permanent results with your clients. So, stay with me. And if you are watching live, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. So feel free to comment below. Okay, so, the first major way that we work with clients, whether it's in the therapy space or healing space or coaching, is through just talking it out, right? Listening to somebody talk about what their experience is, what their challenge or problem is. And then, we let them talk it through so that they can process it. And that is really helpful in so many ways. A lot of times people don't even realize how they feel or what the full breadth of their experience is unless they talk it out. So, this is actually really important. And it's really important to have somebody to listen to you. What I learned working as a school counselor for so long is that most kids didn't really need you to fix their problem. They just needed somebody to be present and listen to them and hold space and just be fully present without having any other agenda. That is actually a gift. So, talking it out and bouncing things off of somebody who is more neutral and who can be objective is really important. And I never want anyone to think that I'm saying that is wrong, because it's not. I think there is a lot of power in talking it out and processing through talking to somebody. However, what I will say, and this is probably something that if you have done therapy, you've recognized, is that at a certain point, talking it through is not really helpful anymore, because eventually it's like you just start talking in circles, right? You're not really getting to what are we going to do differently or how is this changing. And a lot of people will feel like they go to therapy and in the beginning it works really well because they have this space to talk through their feelings and process things and somebody that they feel safe with, and it creates a huge shift for them. But then it kind of falls flat, because then it just feels like they go in and they just keep talking about their problems over and over again, but nothing is actually changing. And the reason why is because, excuse me. Sorry about that. The reason why is because when you talk things out, you are dealing with it on the level of the mind or the intellect, but most past experiences that shape our current reality, they are not only living in the mind, especially if they come from childhood, which most of the things shaping your current experience are going to be things from your childhood, usually from the ages of 0 to 7. And most likely you are not even aware in your conscious mind of the way that these things are shaping your reality or are creating a lens through which you see the world. Excuse me. So, when you're talking it out through the lens of your current experience, but you're not actually accessing the subconscious thoughts and beliefs that are living in the body, in your energy field, that are creating the lens through which you're seeing the world. So, in order to really create a change, we need to go beyond talking, beyond accessing the mind, and into the level of the body, the emotions, and the subconscious. And that is where breath work comes in. And I'm going to talk about that a little more later. But first, I'm going to go into a couple more of the quote unquote common ways that coaches, therapists, or healers will help clients make a change. And then I'm going to go back to why breath work is so helpful. So the next one is changing your perspective, right? So I think a lot of coaches will use this techniques, and therapists too, where somebody comes in and they have a belief or a perpetual way that they're looking at things. Maybe it's around your confidence, or maybe it's around, your self-worth, or maybe it's around money, or maybe it's around, the what you're expecting people to how you're expecting people to see you, or expecting people to reject you, or whatever it is. You are aware that you have this belief. Maybe it's around people pleasing. This is a really common one, especially for women, and you recognize that you have this pattern of behavior, or you have this belief. So, the first thing somebody will do is try to help you change your perspective on it. So, telling you, you are worth more than this. You don't need to people please. You can set boundaries. You can start to look at yourself differently and start to know that you are worth more, and you don't have to accept this kind of behavior from people, and that you are confident and you do have a lot of great qualities. So they will work with you to help you change your perspective, which is really important. We really do need to change our perspective. In fact, our perspective shapes our whole reality. And when people say that we are creators, right? We create our own reality. That is true. But the actual truth of that is that we create our perspective on reality. So we can't control every single thing that happens in our life, but what we can control is our perception of it. So we have the power to completely change our reality through the way we choose to perceive what's happening in front of us. So changing your perspective is really important and really powerful. However, it's really hard to do if you don't change what's behind it, what's causing that perspective. And usually that's something that happened in your life that is unacknowledged or unhealed, that is still creating a lens through which you see the world. Because anytime you have something in your subconscious that is unacknowledged, it is going to get your attention through other things in your life, like your relationships, like your business, like any challenge that comes up for you is typically going to be reflecting back to you something deeper from childhood that you have not acknowledged. So when you simply try to change your perspective, it might work for a little bit, but eventually that deeper thing that's causing you to have that perspective is still going to be there, and it's going to continue to create a lens through which you see the world, and it might show up somewhere else. You might have changed your perspective on one thing, but that unacknowledged part of you is going to show up elsewhere. So while changing your perspective is great, it's not actually getting to the reason why you have that perspective, which in order to really permanently change it, you have to address the reason why you have it in the first place. So the last one that I'm going to talk about is changing your behavior. And this is something that so many coaches will help you with, so many therapists will help you with. They will try to help you change your routine, change the way you're showing up in a situation, change the way you're interacting with people. And again, there's nothing wrong with this at all. We all, if we want a different result, we need to start showing up differently in our lives. We need to start looking at why we're showing up the way that we are, and how we can start to interact with ourselves differently, create new healthy habits, new routines, and also start to interact differently with the people in our lives. And that is really, really important. But when you try to change a behavior without addressing the reason why that behavior is happening in the first place, what ends up happening is that you are what I call white knuckling it, right? It's like when somebody who is an alcoholic just quits alcohol without getting any support, or without going to AA or whatever it is, they call that white knuckling. You're just like doing it and you're like forcing yourself through it, but you're not actually addressing why that problem is there in the first place. So when you try to change a behavior without addressing why the behavior is happening, it might work for a little bit, but eventually the problem is going to show up somewhere else in your life, or you're going to only be able to get so far, and then you're going to crash and you're going to go back to your old behavior because you haven't addressed the thing that's driving that behavior. So you're never going to be able to change it until you do. So this is why Most people will only get so far in therapy or with a coach or a healer, because eventually, using these methods, they are going to hit a wall if they haven't addressed on a deeper level why these things are happening in the first place and why they're having this problem in the first place, and address that. So, this is why when you work with clients, it can be frustrating at times, because you're like, I know this person can create a change. I can see the potential in them, but why isn't it happening? Why are we keep going? Why do we keep going in circles and they keep coming up against the same thing over and over again? And excuse me, I'm sure as a coach, you want all of your clients to get great results, and you want them to be so happy that they go and tell all of their friends about you, and they send you referrals all the time, and they keep coming back because they want to keep getting such great results and keep growing. And as a coach or a therapist or a healer or any practitioner, of course you want that, right? So how do we create that? And the way that we create that is through addressing what I call the core wound, or that reason why those behaviors keep happening, that reason why that challenge keeps coming up, that reason why you can't seem to shift your perspective on your confidence or your self worth. Those are all representative of what I call your core wound, which is the one thing from childhood that has created a lens through which you see the world and has created a blueprint for all of your relationships in your life. And it usually is as simple as one thing. And we can usually distill it down to one thing. And if you address that one thing, then everything in your life starts to change. Imagine that core wound as the root of a tree, and that root of the tree is influencing every single branch of the tree. And the branches of the tree are your relationship with your partner, your relationship with your kids, your business, your career, your relationship with your boss, your relationship with your parents, right? They're all the branches of the tree. And when you address each branch of the tree, it's exhausting because you think all of the problems are separate things, but they're really stemming from one root, which is what I call your core wound. And when you address that, every single branch of the tree starts to change. And that's why I always say to my clients, don't worry about your relationship right now. We're just going to address this core wound. And then your partner is going to start to show up differently. It happens all the time because you've addressed the thing that's creating all of these other outcomes in your life. So, how do we do that? So immediately when we use my methodology, we pinpoint what is this thing? What is this one core wound that is impacting every single area of your life and creating the results that you're getting through all circumstances and situations in your life? And once we address that and we pinpoint what that is, then we have to do the really important part, which is to acknowledge this thing that you have not yet acknowledged about yourself, and then feel the unprocessed or suppressed emotions that are there that are holding that core wound in place. Because at the crux of it, there are emotions that you felt as a young child that you have not yet addressed or fully processed. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. When we're kids, we don't have the emotional capacity to fully process and integrate a lot of the experiences we have. So we push it down, we suppress it because we don't know how to deal with it. And then it shows up in our lives in other ways, like the problems your clients come to you with. So when you address those emotions and you let yourself feel them, people will create a monumental shift in their lives because that wound will start to be addressed and it won't keep showing up in other areas of their lives. So, what is the most direct way to feel those emotions that are unaddressed? Breath work. It is the fastest way to access the subconscious mind. And most of the time, the things that are creating the problems for your clients are not in their conscious mind. They're not aware of it. It is actually in their subconscious mind, and they're not aware of it because usually it's things from childhood that happened before they had the cognitive ability to form linear thoughts or words. So a lot of it is living in the subconscious. And when you use breath work, not only is it a direct route to the subconscious mind, but it also helps you to process the emotions that are there that you haven't fully allowed yourself to process. And it happens quickly. People tell me all the time that once they start doing the breath work, the momentum they get in their lives is indescribable. Things start changing fast. The people around them start changing to mirror back the changes they're making. Opportunities start coming out of nowhere. Money starts coming out of nowhere, and their relationships get better. And for the people who felt stuck in, starting their own business or creating more money in their business or getting a different job that represents who they are now, it all starts to shift because they're no longer operating from that core wound, and they've used the breath work to access the subconscious and release the unprocessed emotions that are standing in the way of them creating what they want. So, instead of helping people address symptoms, when you use my breathwork process, the metamorphosis method, your clients can immediately address the cause of why they're getting the result that they're getting. And then they can start to experience really profound, permanent change in their lives. And you can rely on this process with every client because it works every time. Because when we address the cause of the issue, then all we have to do is support the client in moving through the emotions that are there that they haven't allowed themselves to feel. And then they can come out on the other side and be able to access their power in situations and circumstances that they previously felt stuck or triggered or not confident. So, this process is incredibly powerful, and breathwork is a key part of it. So, I have a certification program where I teach you how to implement my process of the metamorphosis method, which includes breath work and my trauma healing tools to help your clients easily and quickly access that core wound that's creating all of the results in their lives and use breath work to easily process and release the emotions behind it so that they can start to create the results they really want in their lives. And they're going to be so happy with the results they got with you that they're going to refer all of their clients to you, and they're going to keep coming back. And you'll be able to build your business through referrals alone because people will be so happy with the results that they're getting. I see it all the time with my clients and with my certification students. They leave the certification so confident in their ability to create results that people just flock to them. I see it with everybody. So, this is something that, I have developed over 24 years of not only practicing and sharing breath work, but also observing trauma in real children and adults, and then making tools based on my observations in the way that trauma really shows up in kids and then how it shows up in adulthood. So, this is coming from real clinical experience in the therapeutic spaces, but also in the healing spaces. And I've developed a methodology that really works. And when I teach my clients how to use it with their clients get the insane results that I'm talking about. So, if you'd like to learn more about how to use my methodology or how you can use it for yourself, then I'm going to put a link below to schedule a call with me. I would love to hear from you. I would love to chat with you about this. And whether you're like, oh, I want to understand what my core wound is so that I can address it, so that I can create the results I want in my life, or I want to learn how to implement this methodology and facilitate breathwork with my own clients so that they can get better and more predictable results, then reach out to me as well and we can chat about that. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to know how this resonated for you, and what questions you have. So I'm going to put a link below to schedule a call with me, but please comment below if you would like to chat with me and learn more, or send me a message. Thank you so much for being here. This was so fun. I can't wait to connect with you again. Have a great rest of your day.